Dear colleagues and friends, welcome to the final session of Climate Ready Classrooms, a public health faculty development course on climate change. My name is Laura Magaña, and I'm the president and CEO of the Association of Schools and Programs of Public Health, ASPPH, and also the founding president of the Global Network for Academic Public Health, GNF. We have been so honored to take part in this course alongside all of you. This effort has marked a truly global collaboration to recognize the urgency of climate change and a universal demand for faculty equipped to effectively teach in this space. Over these weeks, we have explored an incredible breadth of content, from integrating climate into public health curricula to the science and drivers of climate change, from heat and health, air quality, vector-borne disease, to extreme weather and weather-borne risks, drought and food and water security, and on to the health system resilience, service delivery, decarbonization and sustainability, and of course, risk communication. And now we will get started on our 11th and final session focused on communication, collaboration, and health promotion. Closed caption is available in English by clicking on the CC button on the bottom of your Zoom window. And we also have Spanish captioning. Please click on the link in the chat to access it. And as I mentioned, this is our last of 11 sessions. We have a number of learning objectives for this session, as you can see on the screen. A lot to read all of that, but I will just highlight that we will be covering, explaining the role of health professionals in climate health communication, identifying and engage trusted messengers, explaining how to design effective communication strategies, explain how to apply effective communication skills with stakeholders, communicate and share information at different organizational levels, assess the effectiveness of climate and health communication efforts, among others. So before we get started, a few housekeeping items. As always, this will be a 90-minute session with a lecture and 2 case studies, followed by a Q&A period. So please enter your questions in the Q&A box, not on the chat. The recording for this and previous sessions, as well as the slide decks, will be available through the Columbia Plus Canvas platform. If you have not already enrolled, please do so by clicking the link in the chat. Attendance is being tracked synchronously using your personal Zoom link, but also asynchronously by watching the recording on the Columbia Plus Canvas platform. Note that you must use the same email address to register your Columbia Plus as you did for Zoom. A certificate of participation will be awarded to all those who attend 8 out of the 11 sessions and get 70% or higher on the final exam. The final exam will have approximately 20 questions, all either multiple choice or true and false. Participants must complete the exam in a single sitting using the same email address as your course registration. The exam will be sent via email and WhatsApp today. Asynchronous viewing of the course sessions must be completed by November 30th to count toward attendance. The exam will remain open until November 30th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. It will not be reissued after this date. Use the QR code or link in the chat to join the WhatsApp group for the course. And now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our incredible speakers that are really highlighting today's sessions, and with those, we're going to be closing the whole course. Our lecture will be provided by Andrea Grieco. Actually, he's joining us from Brazil. He's gonna talk to us about that because he's participating in the COP30. So how about that? So Andrea is a researcher specializing in the nexus between the climate crisis and human rights, an environmental communicator active on LinkedIn and Instagram, and a campaigner. He has been recognized as an Agenda 2030 communicator, European Climate Pact ambassador for the European Commission, LinkedIn, Italy's top voice for environment and ethical influencer, and an ocean voice for UNESCO. In 2024, he was part of the Young Leaders Delegation on Youth Policies for the G7 and G20 and is currently serving as a UN expert for the drafting of the Third World Ocean Assessment, a leading international report on the state of the oceans. Born in 1991, originally from Basilicata and now based in Turin, Andrea began his journey in the field as a humanitarian worker with an NGO on the border between Europe and Africa, focusing on climate-induced migration. That experience sparked his commitment to storytelling through social media, highlighting the connections between environmental and social injustice. Today, his channels, followed by over 30,000 people, make complex issues accessible with a direct, pop, and inclusive style, aiming to turn climate anxiety into awareness and action. Convinced that science communication is a tool to democratize knowledge and build a more environmentally conscious citizenship, Andrea combines activism, communication, and research collaboration with institutions, NGOs, schools, and companies in Italy and abroad. So thank you, Andrea, for being with us today. It's a great privilege to have you on our session. Our first case study after Andrea's lecture will be from Dr. John Kutcher. So John is Research Associate Professor and Interim Director of the Center for Climate Change Communication at George Mason University. He leads a dynamic team of faculty, postdoctoral fellows, and graduate students dedicated to exploring effective strategies for communicating about climate change and air pollution. Together, their work empowers organizations to engage and activate citizens in shaping our society's response to these important issues. He's also a co-PI on the Climate Change in the American Mind project, a series of national public opinion surveys carried out in partnership with the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication to investigate and track public attitudes toward climate change and support for climate policies in the United States. He has authored more than 60 peer-reviewed articles on climate change communication. His research has appeared in journals such as the Lancet Planetary Health, the BMJ, Nature Climate Change, and Environmental Communication. His research has also been featured in leading news outlets, including the New York Times, Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and the Atlantic. So thanks, John, for being here today. And our second case study is from Dr. Terence Walters. Terence has served the government of Grenada in several capacities for more than 30 years. He started as a primary school teacher and served in other areas, including drug prevention education, public health, and disaster management. Terence believes in lifelong learning. He's a disaster management practitioner and is currently the National Disaster Coordinator at the National Disaster Management Agency in Grenada since October 2022. Previously, he served as National Disaster Coordinator and Deputy Disaster Coordinator during the period of 2009 to 2017. Thanks, Terence, to bring us all that experience for today's lesson. So with that, you can see the extraordinary panel that we have ahead. Looking forward for that. We pass the mic to Andrea. So to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. So good morning. I just present. Okay. Well, I share my presentation. So good morning to everyone. I'm very, very happy to be there for the second year. And I think it's a very beautiful place to reflect and to talk about the very, very important things about climate change, communication, and also the dissonance from dissonance to action. So my name is Andrea Grieco, and today I'm joining you directly from Belém, from Brazil, where COP30 is happening right now. Being in the Amazon in this moment really change the way you see climate change. Is not something abstract. It's also or a graph or just a number. It's a real, a physical and concrete problem, and it's happening in every conversation you have with communities, with indigenous leaders, with doctors, with young people who are seeing change they never imagined. Exactly, and this is exactly why today's topic matters so much: communication. Climate change is not only a scientific challenge, it's also a communication challenge and engagement challenge. The way we talk about climate change shapes how understand. Most people already know climate change is real, but knowing is not the same as understanding, and the understanding is not the same as feeling, and feeling is not the same as acting. So today we'll explore how communication, collaboration, help promotion can help a bridge and can help us to bridge these gaps. So from Belém, we have a very good news. One of the biggest teams. This is a news of this morning in Belém. So one of the biggest teams this year is adaptation, finance, and health. And the conversation is shifting. We are not just talking about reducing emission, but about how community can adapt and stay healthy in a world that's in getting hotter, more unstable, and more unequal. So to give you one number, by 2035, developing countries will need around $310 billion every year just to cope with the climate extremes. And right now, we are nowhere near that level of funding. At the same time, health has become central in the negotiation at COP 2030 in Belém. And the first time we have the Belém Health Action Plan, a global network and global framework that connect climate adaptation with public health systems. So it's a very big news. And when you are in Belém, you really feel how true this is. You walk through the communities where rising temperatures, water stress, and pollution are already affecting people's daily life. And so the message is very simple and very direct. Resilient health systems are essential and they are not optional. And, communicating this reality, how climate change affect health, how adaptation finance can save lives, how communities can build resilience, has become one of the most important tasks we have around the world, also at COP. So the big conference of the United Nations about climate change and climate justice. One of the biggest challenge we face in is the link between climate change and health. And climate change is already a public health crisis. So we see it in deadly heat waves, in the spread of vector insecurity, in water security, and also in the mental health consequences of living with constant uncertainty. But people often don't make this conversation and this connection on their own. So if climate communication stays abstract, if we talk about climate change effects, CO2, global temperature curves, so people don't see how it affected their single life. But when we talk about bodies, we talk about children, we talk about people communities exposed to health, to stress and anxiety. So climate change become real because we have a very big problem about the global climate anxiety for climate change. That's why health based communication is so powerful today. Also, talking with people, with doctor at COP, with mayor. Yesterday, it was the day dedicated by for cities around the world. Mayor said to us, we need to put the communication about climate change in the every city very very close to the health approach, because it speaks a language that people they understand. So the health topic are a topic very very close to every people around the world, every communities. It is so important to think about that and to work in this way. So um, the distance problem is why climate still feels far away from us. So this is a very huge problem, the distance problem. Many people still see climate change as something far away. For example, for our part of the world, the Amazon problem. So the Amazon burning, but the very very topic is the planet now is burning. So not only the Amazon. If we lose the Amazon, we lose a lot of the instrument to still alive around the world. So many people still see climate change as something far away, far in space, far in time, far from them, and they think, yes, it's happening, but somewhere else. So not in my house, not in my city. Yes, it's serious, but maybe not for me, not in this moment of my life is serious. Or also, yes, the climate is changing, but maybe not now. So we heard a lot of this conversation also in the TV, in television, in radio, in social media, in political issues. So the psychological distance reduce urgency and motivation. And to be honest, we help to create the distance by using image, for example, image of, of polar bears and melting ice for years. Important, a very very big image, but okay, this image don't help to think the climate change very close to every life, every city, also to claim to very close to, for example, from my experience, to Italy situation, because the polar bear are staying in the Arctic region, so it's very very far from us. So a key part of communication today is making climate change close where people live, close to their health, and close to their hope and fears. So um, for that reason, uh, in this time we live a new type of culture. Is not a negation, false culture, a disinformation culture, but is a disabled culture. And today we face this problem, and disable. Most people no longer deny climate change, but they accept it, but they keep it emotionally distant because it's overwhelming. It's a instrument of anxiety, and so they say, "I know it's real." But I can think about it every day. I can think about the climate violation, the human rights violation related by climate change every day, because for me it's very very an anxiety problem, or it's so big, someone else will handle it. So this is the same vibe We can hear in the past COP in the past years, not these years. That's not ignorance, that's a self protection, okay? It's normal, it's human. But if something feels too big or too very, very hard to combat, our brain push it outside just to function. So good communication must speak not only to the rational mind but also to emotions. We have to acknowledge the fear, the confusion, and the fatigue. And we need to show people that facing a reality does mean feeling hopeless. So the problem is to go beyond and turning the anxiety into agency and but before we need to have a effective communication now it will be focused on okay, it's good in catastrophic image in scenario very extreme, but to mobilize people and to have people acting, we need to have more concrete communication. We need to talk about the solution of the climate change. Effective communication today show the risk because we have a risk. It's normal, and we know we don't. It's impossible to stay in the limit of the increase of temperature created by the Paris Agreement. We need to offer pathways forward and not to stay closed in crisis. We need to more connecting climate action with hope, with a new base solution and with a very concrete solution, for example, a nature-based solution. So we need to turning anxiety into agency. And for many years, climate communication focus in catastrophic image, but connecting climate change with concrete action is the correct way to go fast and to create a new solution, also to approach the climate change with children, with communities, with people who don't know nothing about the climate change. So this is the very very big challenge. So doesn't mean being native or optimist at all costs, but is showing that we can protect, we can improve, what solution exists, what community are already doing, and agency grow when people see example of success, when they feel part of something, when they can imagine a better future. For that reason, um, I'm there in Belém. I'm here in Belém also to participate. So to participate the negotiation at the negotiation in climate change, but also to explain to the people the solution that we have. For example, the problem of climate change communication is the same problem of the conference of party communication, because for many years people who work in the COPs talked at other people who know the problem, but we need to more easy communication also to talk about climate change and to talk about COPs to all of people around the world, all of students and people who don't know a lot about climate change. So the language is the key. Climate sciences is full of technical words, mitigation, adaptation, carbon neutrality, net zero, and very, very difficult language. And they are very important, but most people don't use this word in daily life. Also, me, I don't use this word in every action in my life. So if communication feels too technical, people disconnect the brain. So alt language works much better, and people understand asthma, stress, anxiety, contaminated water, for example. So effectively, communication translates complexity into human meaning, and it's connect climate with everyday experience. For example, in my work, I start talking about climate change from an object. For example, I'm in now in my room, hotel room, but I have this water bottle. But it's possible for me to starting about talking about climate change um, and greenwashing from this. This is a battle, all people know, but the stories outside this battle, and the paper you see in the hotel to respect the planet, people don't know. So people don't know about greenwashing, don't know about climate change, etc., etc. So we need to stay more closely to the everyday life experience. So, to explain more the importance of communication, I have a case study that it was it's a very, very beautiful case study. Also because Basilicata is my region, where I was born, in the south of Italy. It's a very small region, often invisible of climate maps, but it hosts one of the biggest onshore oil extraction site in Europe. In Italy, we used to talk about Basilicata, called this region like a Italian Texas, for the onshore oil extraction they are in the Basilicata. The problem, the Basilicata case study, is very, very important to understand that the situation that when the problem is very clear to the people they act, people they move, they start to think and to find a solution. For years, communities have lived with pollution in Basilicata, with the environmental degradation, health problem, with a lot of health problem. So if you have time to study the Basilicata case in the health way, please study and write to me, because we have a lot of work to do in Basilicata for the health reasons. And but official information was often incomplete or difficult to assess. So people become sentinels. They observed, they document, they shared, they used their phones, their sense, their networks. Their civic monitoring became a powerful form of communication. They turned personal experiences into collective knowledge, and they connected villages, families, young people, and older people. They created a form of community based climate communication that filled a gap left by institution, a very huge gap. So, but why I talk about the Basilicata case? Because this story teach us is that communication is not just a media strategies, it's a public health tool. When communities share information, They are protecting themselves. When they speak out about pollution, they are promoting health. And when they document environmental change, they create early warning system long before official reports appear. So, and most importantly, they build thirst, thirst become because thirst doesn't grow from perfect data alone, and it grows when people participate, when they feel seen and heard. So the Basilicata case um, show us the importance of the collaboration also in communities and also in communication of these communities. The collaboration is the missing ingredient in this story, uh, because no single lecture can communicate the climate crisis effectively. Scientists have the data, journalists shape the narrative, health workers see the impact of the ground, citizens bring the lived experience, indigenous communities bring knowledge that Western science often ignore, and the young people bring energy and urgency. When this voice collaborate, communication become stranger, more credible, and more resilient. And it shifts from expert talking at people to expert and communities talking with each other. So that's how we build climate communication that is democratic and inclusive. So the communication is very, very important ingredient for the communication of climate change. So we need to moving beyond the information the deficit. And one last point, for many years, and we believed in the information deficit model, and the idea that people don't act because they don't know enough. So we try to give them more data, more graphs, more facts. But research show this doesn't work. People don't act because they have more information. We live in an era of the news fatigue, called news fatigue. They act when the information makes sense to every single people. So when they trust the messenger, when they feel capable of acting, and when they see others acting too. So today, effectively, communication must focus on meaning, emotion, communities, and action, not just on data. Mm, we have a key lesson for these 30 minutes. So what are the key lessons we take away? First, bring the story closer. Talk about climate change as something happening here and now in the Amazon, in New York, in Basilicata, in Milan, in Malaga, in Sao Paulo, etc. So, second, create acknowledge emotions, fear, anxiety, grief. They are all part of this experience. Third, offer agency, show what people can do individually and collectively. Fourth, co-create narrative with communities. Listen to communities, don't speak for them, speak with them. Fifth, use health and the main entry point because everyone understands health. And finally, remember that communication is a form of care. When we communicate well, we protect people every day. So it closes with a through that guide my work. And in a world that risks become uninhabitable, communication is the act of the keeping it human. And so I hope this lesson help you to navigate in the climate change communication and to stay updated about also COP, big events, international events. And thank you so much for inviting me and for listening.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Oh my goodness, hearing you gives me hope already. So thank you so much for the last slide because I kept on writing all my notes that I learned so much from your message today and really gives me a lot of hope. What important your message about really climate change has to be close to the people to connect the messages with the people, the stories. But you all, I mean, all of my notes, you actually have it in your last slide. So thank you so much for giving us that important message. All our audience here are a faculty of public health schools and other schools that every single day we are dealing with our students, with our faculty, with our communities. This is a message of hope. How can we just bring all this really closer to the people and with a hope? And I love that because we keep on thinking about all these, oh my God, all these big risks, right, about climate change. And that, as you say, we're fatigued. They're just like too much for us. But when you connect with specific activities and actions that you can really do in your community, with your students, with your community, that give us hope, and all together we can move this. So thank you so much, Andrea. That was awesome conversation. We will. I'm looking forward for the Q&A. But with that, let's give now the mic to John. So John Kutcher, it's your turn for presenting to us your case study. So thank you, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Let me just get my slides going here. Okay. Can you see that okay? All right.
Yes.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you happen to be joining from. My name is John Kocher, and I'm a professor at the Center for Climate Change Communication at George Mason University, based in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. Um, so I'm delighted to be here with you today. There we go. And I'd like to just start off with a little bit of background about our center. We consider ourselves a think and do tank. On the thinking side of things, we conduct a variety of different forms of communication research to do everything from experiments to identify effective messages, to engage the public on
And
climate change, audience research to understand their background, attitudes, beliefs, and values with respect to the issue, as well as content analyses of media coverage of climate change to better understand the overall information environment in which people are encountering information about climate change. And so, as part of that audience research, one of the things that we do is we try to look for opportunities to enhance public engagement with climate change, whether it's increasing support for policy or motivating people to engage in advocacy. We're deeply involved in research to identify those opportunities. And as part of that, we're also looking for trusted voices who can convey those effective messages about climate change. And I have some great news for everyone in the audience here today, which is that our research consistently shows that health professionals are one of the most trusted sources when it comes to climate change. And so all of you have a tremendous opportunity to really advance progress on this issue. And then lastly, on the do side of our think and do tank, we don't just do the research, we actually put it into action and apply it. And so we run a variety of different public engagement programs. One of them is the Medical Society Consortium on Climate Change and Health, which works to mobilize medical professionals here in the United States to educate people about the health effects of climate change as well as the health benefits of climate solutions. And so for today's talk, I'm going to focus specifically on how we can use surveys to inform the development of message strategies for campaigns around climate change. And I'm going to do this with a case study using some of that survey data that Laura mentioned in my intro. And hopefully this will seed some good discussion afterwards for us to talk more about this issue. So surveys can be used for a lot of different things when it comes to planning a communication campaign. So one is they can help us define the target audience and learn more about the different values and beliefs that various audiences and groups have with respect to a particular issue. They can help us choose which behaviors to focus on as a goal for the campaign. They can also help us select among different communication channels to figure out what are the best ways to get our messages across. Is it through social media? Is it through earned media? Is it through working with journalists? These are all questions that can be informed by survey research. And then, as I mentioned a moment ago, we can also use surveys, of course, to identify who are those trusted messengers who can convey those messages through different communication channels. And then lastly, they can also provide important feedback that helps us calibrate a campaign either before we've even designed it and started it, or midway through. They can help us make course corrections. And then finally, at the end of a campaign, they can help us evaluate the impact and determine how successful it actually was. But I'm not going to talk about any of those things today. Today, I'm going to talk about another way that surveys can help inform communication campaigns. And that's really at the beginning of the campaign development process, specifically in terms of helping us identify different message strategies that we can use in campaigns. And what I mean by that is the beliefs that a particular message will be designed to impart on its audience. So this is distinct from the messages themselves, which are the result of a creative process of taking those ideas and putting them into the context of, say, an advertisement or social media posts, so on and so forth. These are really the beliefs that we're trying to change within our audience. And so as you'll see, there's decades of social science research on this. And one way to think about it is that a message strategy is only promising insofar as it satisfies a number of different criteria. One, there are a substantial number of people who are not in the desired position on the message strategy relevant variable. Now, that's a very technical way of saying we want to target beliefs that are not widely held within the population, the target population of interest already. Because if people already believe, have the desired belief that we're trying to change, it's not going to be a very fruitful way of eliciting behavior change in the target audience. We also want to look for beliefs where there's a substantial relationship between the message strategy relevant variable and the outcome variable. And that's simply to say that we want to identify beliefs that are strongly associated with the campaign objectives and behavioral outcomes that we're interested in influencing. And then lastly, we want to look for beliefs that are going to be movable. We want, if some beliefs are just strong, very strongly held within the population, and therefore those are going to be the ones that are more resistant to campaign messages and influence. So a much simpler way of putting those three technical criterion are there many people with the wrong views on the message relevant belief that we might want to correct? Is there a substantial association between those beliefs and the outcome we're trying to influence through our campaign? And again, is it a belief that a campaign can actually influence and affect? So if there's one mantra that animates the work that we do at the Center for Climate Change Communication, and this goes beyond just climate change, it's that one of the key ingredients to any effective public engagement effort is simple, clear messages repeated often by a variety of trusted voices. And on an issue that's as complex as climate change, it's not realistic to expect that we will all become scientists overnight, or that's really an achievable goal. But there are a few key foundational facts that are really important for folks to know. And these can actually be conveyed in 12 words. So it's that climate change is real, it's us, experts agree, it's bad, others care, but there's hope. So by it's real, it's that we want people to know that climate change is happening. We want them to know that human activity is the main cause, it's us. By experts agree, I'm referring to the fact that really since the beginning of this century, there have been a series of different studies to try and characterize the extent of scientific consensus that human-caused climate change is happening, using a variety of different methods, whether it's surveying climate scientists, doing analyses of the literature on climate science to see what percentage of papers actually endorse the fact that human-caused climate change is happening. And across all of these studies, and there are, of course, always more being published every year, we consistently find that 97% or more of the world's climate scientists are convinced that climate change, human-caused climate change is happening. And we've seen this through multiple scientific assessments as well, that the evidence is really unequivocal. And so it's important, we find in research that the extent to which people understand that there's a scientific consensus can be a consequential belief. So by it's bad, this gets to some of what Andrea was talking about. It's not that climate change is just a plants, penguins, and polar bear issue that's far off in time, space, or affecting different groups. We want people to understand that it's bad for us here, now, today, and that it's affecting the people we care about. For example, our children or our grandchildren. And then others care refers to something that's really important we find in behavior change, which is social norms. The extent to which people perceive that other people are worried about global warming and support action to address it. And we consistently find across a number of different studies that people tend to systematically underestimate the extent to which other people are worried about climate change and support action to address it. So helping people understand the true extent of concern, of collective concern about climate change can be important. And lastly, that there's hope. So social scientists often refer to something called self-efficacy, or in different contexts, a little bit different, collective efficacy. And this is the extent to which people are confident that they have the ability to make a difference, right? That there are actions that we can take individually and collectively to both help mitigate and adapt to climate change. And we find that this is another important belief for people to understand. And so, why are these important beliefs to impart upon our audiences? Well, as I'll show you in a moment, all of them to greater or lesser degrees can predict some of the different campaign objectives that we might care about. Because ultimately, it's not just about convincing people that climate change is happening. We want them to support policies to address climate change. We want them to engage in advocacy actions to actually demonstrate the depth of their support for those policies to address climate change. We want them to seek out more information about the issue and discuss it with their friends and family. And so all of these beliefs can be helpful well, some more than others can be helpful in cultivating these different behaviors. And so now I'll talk a little bit about some of the research, the case study on this, and all of this data that I'm about to show you comes from our Climate Change in the American Mind surveys that we conduct with our partners at the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication. And these are nationally representative surveys of US attitudes on climate change that we conduct twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall. And we've been doing these since 2008. And so if we coming back to those criteria for what makes an effective message strategy, The first one of those is there's a substantial number of people who are in the wrong position on that particular belief. And so if we take the data from our surveys and we look at each of those key facts that I mentioned just a moment ago, we see that and this is all US data, about 7 out of 10 Americans think climate change is real. So there's already a fair number of people who are convinced climate change is happening. It's a little bit lower in terms of belief that it's caused by human activity. But when we look at the perceptions of the scientific consensus, we see that only about 26% of Americans think that 90% or more of the world's climate scientists are convinced that human-caused climate change is happening. So there's clearly a lot of room for growth and change on that particular belief. When it comes to risk perceptions, the belief that climate change is bad, about 2 out of 3 Americans are convinced that it poses a significant risk. And then in terms of the last two key facts, for this particular study, we broke those out in two different ways. And of course, in any kind of survey research, we can operationalize these different beliefs in a variety of different ways. And so for others' care, in social science, we oftentimes differentiate social norms into what we call descriptive norms and injunctive norms. A descriptive norm is, for example, the perception of the amount of effort that we think other people are taking to address climate change, whereas the injunctive norm is our perception of how important we think other people think it is to take action on an issue like climate change. And so for both of those norms, we see that there's a fair amount of room for growth in terms of convincing more Americans that other people care about this issue. And then in terms of hope, again, I mentioned efficacy beliefs a moment ago as one way of thinking about hope. Again, we could operationalize this in a variety of different ways. We could literally ask people the extent to which they feel hope about the issue of climate change. But here, the efficacy belief refers to collective efficacy, specifically the extent to which people feel confident that they acting together with other people like themselves can affect what the government does to address climate change. And again, we see that only about 4 out of 10 feel a moderate degree of confidence that they can affect what the government does. So again, for about 6 out of 10 Americans, there's room for growth on that. And then on hope opportunity, that specific question asks people whether or not they think it's too late to do anything to address climate change. And so there, we see that most people think, no, it's not too late. 8 out of 10 Americans feel that way. And so there's not actually a lot of people who need to be convinced that it's not too late. So that's the first criterion for success. If we take these measures and then do put them into a regression model to see how well they predict a variety of different outcomes that we might try to affect through a communication campaign. Those that I mentioned a moment ago, support for different policies to address climate change, seeking out information on climate change, what I'm calling information sharing here, or how often people discuss climate change with their friends and family. Or lastly, engagement in a variety of different political behaviors, such as signing a petition, meeting with one's elected officials to advocate for action on climate change. Those are the 4 different outcomes that we're predicting here. And so if you look at this table here, it's a lot of numbers, but those that are bolded with the little asterisks, those are the ones where there's a statistically significant relationship between that belief and that particular outcome variable. So for instance, if you look at the first column for policy support, if you're a campaign planner, you've actually got a lot of options in terms of different beliefs that you might target with your campaign if your goal is to increase support for climate policies. You could focus on the belief that it's us, experts agree, the fact that it's bad, others care, there's hope. You have a lot of choices open to you. And in fact, another key thing I want to stress here is campaign planners don't have to choose just one belief to target, right? They can design messages that are intended to influence multiple beliefs, right? And so policy support, you've got a lot of options. On the other hand, if your goal is to increase information seeking about climate change, this analysis really suggests there's only one out of these six key beliefs are predictive of information seeking on climate change, and that's the others care, specifically the one that's focused on descriptive norms, the amount of effort people think their friends and family are making to address climate change. And so you might want to design messages intended to influence that belief. Um, Similarly, information sharing, increasing discussion. We see that others care is again another really important belief, both kinds. And then political advocacy, again, there are a few different options available, but the one that is far and above the most strongest predictor of political advocacy, at least in this analysis, is the belief that climate change is human caused. And so perhaps a slightly less overwhelming way to convey all of this information in a single package is to put it in the context of a more qualitative table. So looking at the first criterion, are there many people with the wrong views on a particular belief? It's real. Not too many people are unconvinced that climate change is real. It's fairly minimal relative to the other beliefs. Same with the idea that it's too late to do anything to address climate change. But for some of these other ones, to greater or lesser degrees, there's a fair number of people who still could be influenced by a campaign. And then, as I mentioned a moment ago, you have lots of different options when it comes to increasing policy support, relatively fewer when it comes to information seeking and sharing. And then again, a few different options when it comes to influencing political advocacy. But again, there's a strong winner there in terms of it's us, in terms of its ability to predict advocacy to support climate policies. And so, just to wrap things up, I hope I've now convinced you that surveys can be a useful tool for planning and deciding and identifying which message strategies to target in a campaign. But also, I want to caution you that correlation, of course, is not causation. We still need message experiments to really determine that final criterion of whether these beliefs are capable of being influenced by campaign materials, right? And the only way to really demonstrate that is through experiments and test out, can we actually design a message that will influence those beliefs? And then similarly, can we demonstrate experimentally that though changing those beliefs influences the behaviors of interest? And that's really my final point, that message testing and evaluation above and beyond the type of survey analysis I showed you here today are still important to the campaign planning process, as well as evaluating its success. And so with that, I'll go ahead and conclude my remarks. If you'd like to sign up to receive email updates with our research from the center, go ahead and scan that QR code, or you can visit our website there below. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, John. This was an incredible case study that you presented. First of all, thank you so much for everything you do in the center. And one of the objectives about this network and this climate change, and that's why we are global here, is to connect the researchers, to connect the centers around the world. So moving forward, I'm sure in the audience there are other centers, there are other researchers that are doing kind of similar things. Please connect each other. This is a way of really connecting and advancing more. And it's great to be among communicators in this panel because your six key facts and Andrea's also key messages, they align so much. And both of you started with, this is real. This is a risk, right? But then there's hope. There's a lot of room for action, and that's exactly what we want through this intervention and through the work of everyone that on all the centers around the world that are doing. So thank you so much, John, for really sharing this information and your research. It's a lot of to be thinking and to be sharing around all of us. So thank you for that.
My
So
pleasure.
with that, let's move us to Terence. So thank you and welcome to being with us and to you. Terence, that's your time.
All right, thank you very much. And let me go ahead and share my screen here. Uh, right. Are you seeing my screen and hearing me loud and clear?
Yes, Terence, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so today I'll talk about do case study on Grenada and look at hurricane preparedness communication, looking at the messaging warning system and how we can reach out to the various vulnerable populations. So just a bit, and I'll talk specifically here about Grenada. Right now, Grenada is a small island developing state, and we're located in the Caribbean. Grenada, we have 3 islands, and it's 3 small islands: Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, with mainland Grenada being the biggest of the 3 islands. We're 133 square miles in size, again, pretty small. So the island, well, the mainland island, Grenada, is 12 miles wide and 21 miles long, with a population just over 100,000 people. And we're in the Caribbean, and Grenada, like many of the other Caribbean islands, have small, fragile economies and that are heavily dependent on tourism and agriculture. And we understand that disaster shocks can or will most times impact on these two sectors very easily. Your tourism product, because again, tourism depends on people coming into the area, so your tourism product can be impacted, and your agriculture. So if you have, for example, hurricane, which is one of the major hazards that can impact, like we see in Jamaica recently. So you have significant damage and destruction from a hurricane. Your tourism product will be impacted, and your agriculture, so you'd lose a lot of your agriculture sector. So we've got to keep that in mind, given that our products can be impacted. And Grenada, just a bit more about the background. Grenada, as a country, is a major importing country. So we import quite a lot of the products that we use, a lot of our food and electronics. We import quite a lot. And so we are a member of the Caribbean community, commonly called CARICOM, okay, which is the member states, many of the member states in the Caribbean region. In Grenada, disaster management is governed by the principles of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, which is the umbrella body responsible for disaster management in the Caribbean region. And we focus mainly on the principle of comprehensive disaster management, which is the management of all hazards through all phases of the disaster management cycle: preparedness and mitigation, response, relief, recovery. So all phases of the disaster management cycle, and by all people. So again, comprehensive disaster management is the management of all hazards through all of the phases of the disaster management cycle by all people. We have in Grenada the National Disaster Management Agency, which is responsible for general preparedness and response and relief, recovery whenever there is a hazard event, a hurricane, an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, whatever it is, the National Disaster Management Agency is responsible for preparing and responding to any of these hazard events. Now, just a little bit about the history of hurricanes in Grenada over the years. All right. And just a little comparison here. In 1955, we go back as far as 1955, which was 70 years ago. And so there was Hurricane Janet. And with Hurricane Janet, there were over 100 deaths recorded in 1955, and September 1955. Now, 49 years later, in September of 2004, Grenada experienced Hurricane Ivan. And although the damage recorded amounted to quite a lot, the number of deaths recorded was only 39. So there was significant damage to the country, and Hurricane Ivan in 2004 was a Category 3. And so 39 deaths recorded. Move now to 2005. 10 months later, the island experienced Hurricane Emily. Now, Hurricane Emily was a Category 1 hurricane. No deaths were recorded, right? Category 1. So again, in 2004, you had a Category 3. You recorded 39 deaths. 10 months later, you had a Category 1, and you recorded no deaths. Now, let's go to the other hurricane in 2024. So 2024, last year, on the 1st of July, Grenada experienced another hurricane, which was Hurricane Beryl, and that was a Category 4 when it made landfall in Grenada. 3 deaths were recorded, 1 on mainland Grenada and 2 on Carriacou. Now, Carriacou and Petite Martinique, like I said earlier, there are 3 islands: mainland Grenada, there's Carriacou, there's Petite Martinique, and Carriacou and Petite Martinique are smaller islands to the north of mainland Grenada. And these islands were heavily impacted by Hurricane Beryl. Okay, but again, but the population on Carriacou is about 6,000, on Petite Martinique about 1,000. So these islands heavily impacted, along with the islands of the Grenadine and St. Vincent and other islands were impacted by Hurricane Beryl significantly. So that's just to give a little idea of the hurricanes that impacted Grenada from 1955 to last year. Let's take a look now at hurricane preparedness in Grenada. The official Atlantic hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30. Okay, June 1st to November 30 each year, you have the hurricane season. There's preparedness because we're responsible for preparing the population, public education, drills. Then we do shelter inspection, inspect all the shelters to ensure that they are ready. Then you have the list of shelters published to the general population. And at the beginning of the hurricane season, you do a press briefing and special programs to start the hurricane season so that people are quite aware of what is happening. So we ensure that preparedness is a key focus. But hurricane early warning in Grenada and the Caribbean, we have a meteorological office. Watches and warnings are issued in case there's a hurricane or storm approaching that's issued by Trinidad and Tobago. The early warning for storms and hurricanes very advanced in Grenada and the Caribbean region. I must say, there's adequate warning provided for the citizens whenever there's going to be a hurricane. And Grenada issues what is called a tropical weather outlook during the months of May to November 4 times a day. So the citizens are updated as to what is happening within the tropics and as it relates to hurricanes and storms. So that happens. Now, the public education and information, we focus a lot of that on that with our population, and there's a public education committee. It includes government information service, all media entities, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, and several other relevant entities and organizations. They are all part of that committee. In Grenada, the media houses, so all media, they're obligated to provide free airtime for disaster management messaging. So it's an obligation that they have, that they must provide free airtime for disaster management messaging. Now, public education, you have media campaigns, trainings, and that we're looking at the outreach strategies that are used. Public education campaigns, you have a lot of training with churches, community groups, schools, workplaces. We do a lot of drills with the schools and the workplaces, and we try to do at least one simulation exercise annually, and then a lot of public presentation and lectures. We focus a lot of that in our public education strategy. Let's look at just a little bit at Hurricane Beryl last year and what happened with the communication strategy. Now, there was continuous public education and information. And before the event, there was a lot of public information. When you're doing the public information, you have to focus on as many groups as possible. Use all the media that's available. Everything that's available you use, and you provide information from professionals, all right? Professionals and people who are authority in the area. That is who we get the information from. Now, that information will provide reassurance to the population. Again, early warning information, it should be clear and relevant and timely, and that information should be sustained. You must continue the information before the event, during the event as much as possible, after the event. So with Hurricane Beryl last year, the public was high in praise for the agency because we employed a strategy where we provided the information for people before the event, during the event, after the event, and people were happy with that. Now, we understand that with climate change, these storms, hurricanes will become more frequent, more intense. So we have to ensure that we provide information for people. Our messages must be targeted, and we must use all media platforms that are available. The list here: television, radio, websites, email, WhatsApp. You have Twitter, Instagram, newspapers, pamphlets, text messages, and there may be others that we can use, but we must use all media that is available. Now, however, what we realize is that there are people living with disabilities, and we have to focus on them. We have to provide for them, because people living with disabilities considered a vulnerable group. You have the visually impaired, mentally and physically impaired, autistic. You have to use sign language and other means to provide information for these vulnerable groups. I must say that in Grenada, we do employ sign language, but there's need to upgrade and to cater for this group and provide information that they can that can reach them. All right. So not just sign language, but you have to employ other strategies. So you must cater for the people living with disabilities, and you must provide information for them, because they or the people around them have to make decisions that will save lives, reduce damage to property. So that must be taken into consideration. Effective messaging here for disasters. So you must know what the event is. Is it natural or man-made? Know the audience, know the population, assess your available media. What do you have that's available? the cost, because sometimes there's a cost, and you have to employ the right contractor. Ensure that you have people who understand what the messaging is all about and how they can do it effectively. The timing is important. When do you give the message? What intervals? That is very important. The tone, the appearance of the person providing the information, the tone. You must be friendly with people. Giving them the information. Yes, this is serious, but not in a way that makes them panic. Good. And then the location, you have to avoid ambiguity as much as possible when you're giving information about these events to people. So at least here, the effective messaging, you have to give at least one message. So people must go away with at least one message, and the messenger must be relevant. You have to ensure that, again, the right person, and your messages must be relevant and timely, and your message must lead to decision making. Again, social media, very important. The bad actors, and as I wrap up here, just to say that there are bad actors. No, social media is very powerful, but it is an effective medium for messaging. But there are bad actors that can have serious influence that we must be mindful of. And people are sometimes very gullible. So we have to ensure that with our messaging, we do all that is necessary to prevent the bad actors. And we know that the bad actors are the ones who try to jump in and provide messages before the authentic messaging. So as disaster management practitioners, we have to give the messages early and ensure that people understand it must be timely, it must be relevant. And so we have to, with climate change providing a challenge for us, with these hazards becoming more frequent, more intense, we have to ensure that our messaging is on point. So that's it. I thank you, and I encourage us to ensure that we communicate with our publics and ensure that they do understand the message that we're trying to present to them whenever, or well, in terms of preparing for these hazards. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Terence, for this very clear picture of the country, of your country, and everything you do to prepare for this and other natural disasters. Thank you so much for that clear example of what happens around the world. So I'm going to bring all the panelists to the screen right now. First of all, thank you so much. It has been awesome. Andrea, I think that, thank you so much. Now we're here. So I know, unfortunately, that happens all the time when you have very engaging conversation. We're excited, and we all talk, and now we have very few minutes to really wrap up. And of course, there are questions from the public, and I'm sorry we can not be able to actually run into them. But I would like to offer another option, is that can we, just to wrap up the conversation, very engaging, very interesting, all of you can give us just 1 minute, one message that you want our audience to take away. Remember that our audience are our faculty around the world who are trying hard to include this important issue. We all care, we all want to do something, and we have our students, we have our community, we have a part in our university. We can do a lot, but we need your guidance, we need your expertise and your suggestion. How can we really include? And we are all, faculty of very different, diverse subjects. It's not that we have a climate change course itself, but maybe EPIC professors or biostatistics or whoever. So what would be the one message that you want to give them in order to just wrap up today's conversation? So can we start? Maybe Andrea, let's start with you. Let's go in the same order. Andrea.
Yeah, thank you so much to all. Thank you also for the question. If you have any question, send to me or send to the organizer the question. We provide a correct attention. So For me, the best message is to put health at the center of climate action and climate communication, connection, and create a connection with health and finance and justice. Also, another important thing is also to stay with communities. Frontline communities don't need us to tell them climate change is real because they experiment climate change every day, but stay close to the community and work in the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrea. John.
Yeah, no, thank you again for the opportunity and for the great question. So I would stress that going back to what I said in my presentation, that all of you have a tremendous opportunity here as health professionals and public health practitioners, because what we see in the research is that framing climate change as a health issue is one of the most compelling and persuasive ways to galvanize action. And it goes back to what Andrea was saying, that it helps to reduce the psychological distance that many people sort of feel about the issue of climate change. It makes it more concrete and tangible and personable to people. And health practitioners, we find again and again, are some of the most trusted voices and messengers to carry this particular set of messages across. And in terms of convincing your own colleagues and faculty, going back to that key belief that I mentioned, that others care about this issue, we see time and again that it's not just that people in general underestimate the extent to which their colleagues and friends care about the issue, but this is true even among professionals, like health professionals and elected officials. They all tend to underestimate the extent to which people care about this. And when we've surveyed health professionals, and we've done this in many different countries around the world, we find that they actually care and feel a personal sense of responsibility to educate the public and policymakers about this issue, even if they may not feel like that's a widely held belief among their colleagues. And so speaking up and breaking that silence and showing how much you and your colleagues care is one of the first steps to getting more institutional buy-in from your employers and your supervisors to spread the word about this and formalize these kinds of things. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, John. Terence? We cannot hear you.
Yes.
You're muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for this opportunity to present. And so I want to underscore here that climate change is real. And despite the fact that, there are some people who have different opinions. Okay. But climate change is real. And we are noticing with the storms, and I speak specific to the storms and hurricanes that we're seeing in the Caribbean. These storms are becoming more frequent, becoming more intense. We are seeing more Category 5 storms than before. Previously you'd hear storms or maybe hurricanes Category 1, Category 2. But in the last 10 to 20 years, we have been seeing an increase in the Category 5 storms, and it can be attributed to some of the change in the climatic conditions. And so we have to be mindful of that, but we have to continue our messaging to our populations and ensure that we do whatever is necessary to get across the messaging so that people understand it, people get the message, so that they can take actions. Okay, they have to take particular actions to save lives and reduce damage to property. So yes, I believe that people, all of us, we have to make sure that our populations get those messages clearly. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, the three of you. It has been just a great final session. I would like to also invite Daniele Magales. She is the Senior Project Director of Global Consortium on Climate and Health Education. And that's actually the platform that we can continue all of these conversations. So thank you all. I will close up later, but just Daniele, please, your final thoughts.
Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you all the speakers today and dear colleagues and friends, because we made a lot of friends during this process here. I speak with a lot of people in the WhatsApp group, and I already feel that I'm connected with all these people. So on behalf of the Global Consortium on Climate and Health Education, it's a true pleasure to close this Climate Ready Classroom program. Today marks not only the completion of your training, but also the beginning of a new phase in your journey as a public health faculty. We're shaping the next generation of climate health leaders. I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to our partners, the Global Network for Academic Public Health, to Laura, to John, to Dorothy, to Rebecca, and all its regional association, ASFAR, ASFA, ASPP8, CAFIA, Alazagi, CFN, APACF. Your partnership and unwavering commitment made this program possible and ensure that it reached faculty worldwide. And I would like to thank you, all the speakers that we had here. We could bring, because this is a global training, we could invite all the good speakers, the best speakers that we know, to provide this lecture. So this course was really, really special. I want also to thank all the participants to the time that you invested, the energy and the commitment into this training, balancing demanding of teaching, research responsibility. So your engagement shows how deeply committed you are to preparing your students, your institutions for the reality of a rapidly changing climate. I also encourage each of you to take that everything that you learn here and continue expanding or integrating climate change and health education within your schools, even with small steps, a new lecture, a case study, a discussion on climate justice. Any small things can catalyze and transformative change. And we know that when faculty lead, institutions follow. This moment is especially meaningful because today is the health day at the COP30, where the Belen Health Action Plan is being announced. And among its commitments, there is one powerful call that is for all of you. The call says integrate climate and health education into school curriculum and community programs, fostering diversity, inclusion, psychosocial well-being, and increasing awareness of climate change impacts on health and health equity from an early age. Your work as faculties is essential to turning this commitment into reality. You are the ones who will translate this global aspiration into practical, local action, into classrooms, into curriculum, into students' lives. So thank you so much for your participation and your dedication. And in 1 year, we will reach out to you to know how this program changed your school courses and your life and the life of your students. And congratulations to everyone. And we look forward to see you in another opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniele, for your message. And as we conclude right now, I want to express really my sincere gratitude to our partner, the consortium, the Global Consortium on Climate and Health Education, for co-leading really this effort with the GNF, the Global Network of Academic Public Health, and to every lecturer, case presenter who made these topics really so engaging and dynamic and actionable. And to all of you, really, for your energy, all of you, your participants, the audience, your commitment really to this course. Together, we have translated urgency into practical pedagogy, grounded in equity and impact. So the engagement of over 1,000 participants worldwide underscores our collective and global resolve to act. So this course has shown the power of partnership. through the collaboration with all of our regional associations of public health, and of course, the Global Consortium as well. When global networks collaborate, we accelerate progress. We link cutting-edge research to real teaching tools, elevating local experiences into case studies others can really adapt. So I want just to thank all of you for your leadership, really your curiosity, and your dedication to protecting the health of everyone everywhere. We are grateful for your partnership, inspired by your progress, and confident that the impact of this learning will be felt far beyond this course by the students you teach, the communities you serve, and the systems you help transform. So thank you very much to all of you. Have a wonderful night, evening, or day, wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.